Sorry, y'all. I had to go clean off whatever that was guts from the back rooms and get ready to talk to y'all about some other shit. And I saw this really dope video put by FD Signifier about the Black Panther, and I really appreciate a lot of the social commentary he had for the Black Panther. But you know, I gotta come with a little bit of smoke.
And all this death, just so I could kill you.
Because I have some issues with the Black Panther. Let's talk about it when we come right back.
Walking through the crease and the cracks of the streets, struggling for some food and a bed to sleep, while trying to cause overthrow. I'm feeling weak, ideology buff.
Don't get it wrong. I appreciated FD's video a lot, especially for the social commentary, but I'm coming with that motherfucking smoke, bruh. I want to take time in a moment to say the attack on the Black Panther and T'Challa is not an attack on Chadwick Boseman. Rest in peace to that brother. He was a great actor, and I want to be very clear about that. But now that that's said, it's time for that motherfucking smoke that I got for T'Challa. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, this is a racist review. Let's take a moment to talk about Killmonger. So the truth about it is, T'Challa's father took a moment out to go over to the Bay after sending his spies over there. One was the real one that was down to liberate his people across the globe, and saw the issues that were happening not only in Wakanda, but specifically in the Bay Area, and what was happening in the US to black folks here. And when the king found out, due to Snitch 9 Whitaker over here, the king came to then bring him back to Wakanda to be held accountable for the fact that he was trying to liberate the people of the diaspora in the Bay, arming folks so that they could then resist the oppression they were facing due to the Western colonialist powers. And when the revolutionary brother that happened to be Killmonger's father said, "F that," the king decided to come across the room and put the claws in his chest when he wouldn't just obey, killing a single father, apparently. I mean, they don't really clarify that, but based off what we're seeing, leaving his son in the Bay Area to face the oppression that his father was talking about, and then heading home. The reality this plays out is the bourgeoisie coming across from a different nation to thwart an African-led revolution brought by their own people against a white supremacist colonialist government known as the US of A. Yeah, the Marvel Universe. But Killmonger strives to follow in his father's footsteps, trying to remove the oppressive heel of white supremacy off the back of the African diaspora as a whole. He decides to train himself to become the revolutionary, and also to get justice for his father's murder. In doing this, he was sent across the world to kill multiple peoples, even people who look just like him and reflect his image.
Now, if you ain't ready to pay them kind of dues, now you get out and go back to doing nothing, but don't tell me who I killed and what it cost me to do it.
At the end of the day, he's saying, this is for the justice of my father, though. This is to be able to train myself to be able to take the throne and liberate my people. And after an elaborate scheme where he plans to heist vibranium from a museum that is full of stolen goods that the European colonials had took from our people, he kindly reminds them exactly who they are.
Don't trip. I'm gonna take it off your hands for you. These items aren't for sale. How do you think your ancestors got these? You think they paid a fair price? Or did they take it like they took everything else?
Before utilizing a distraction to wage an attack against that museum and take back what was rightfully theirs. As he seemed to be collaborating with this man named Claw, who seemed like analogous to the Russians. I'm just saying, the aesthetics, bruh, look at the aesthetics. Yes, he had a different accent, but he came very much off of what the Russian or Soviet USSR portrayed as. But anyways, he pulls off this heist. Then he seemed to allow Claw to go out and sell this vibranium for a shit ton of diamonds to the CIA. Well then, T'Challa shows up, the so-called Black Panther, to disrupt this interaction. And it comes out to a big brawl in the middle of the streets, huh? Leading Killmonger to escalate his plans, executing his so-called partner, Claw, so that he can get access to Wakanda. Within this, you see the first thing that just doesn't quite add up to the character they've developed thus far, which is him recklessly killing his day one to open it up to be able to kill Claw as well, which really doesn't fit his character arc given the speech that he gave at the foundation of his interest seems to point at something more in depth, someone who has more restraint than that. However, we go ahead and look past this real quick and step forward into him making his appearance in Wakanda. Then during this, he lets them know who they are and who he is. That they are isolationist bourgeois who sit there on their thrones enjoying the best of life while the rest of our people sit there and suffer. Well, they proudly proclaim that they are not the same as the others. Their people's Wakanda, no one else. No one of the African diaspora is their people. Then Killmonger quickly reminds them, didn't all life come from Africa? So isn't all people our people?
It's about 2 billion people all over the world that looks like us, but their lives are a lot harder. Wakanda has the tools to liberate them all. And what tools are those? Vibranium. Your weapons. Our weapons will not be used to wage war on the world. It is not our way to be judge, jury, and executioner for people who are not our own. Not wrong. But didn't life start right here on this continent?
And as they try to have him removed from the chambers so he can issue his challenge, then he does. And nobody would even let him say his name. They try to hold him back from showing his identity and his right to that tradition. Now the same people who uphold the tradition noticeably mock at it when it is not in their favor, as he utilizes it to bring forth a challenge for the throne so that he could push forward an agenda to liberate the black people. But then one brother yells out, "Who is your name?" Then he lets them know, "Nigga, I'm your cousin, bruh." Then, as FD points out, they have the challenge and he straight washes motherfucker T'Challa. Like, bro, not even close. Just beats him like a redhead stepchild, nigga. Like, fuck, bro. Oh, gingers, are you offended? Well, guess what? Little Mermaid. After he absolutely washes T'Challa, Beast breaks off his ass, throws him down a waterfall, says take a bath. He goes to the ritual, in which he goes to the ethereal or astral plane. Within this astral plane, we see he's in his apartment as a child. And this is where I gotta ask him a little pushback against my homie FD over there, because he said that outside was Wakanda, but if you look closely, it was the Bay. With the same skies they saw, because he was in an ethereal plane, but when he went back to where he existed, the life he had lived. I think that's also a really important message within that movie, if you want to take one from it, that we should see through our lens to our ancestors. But that's a whole other conversation for another video, which I'm going to do. Within that, he's still, though, not free. He is caged within that apartment. He is stuck within the moments that seem to define him. The trauma at his childhood when he found his father dead, trying to have a conversation with his father. His father kind of begged him to forgive, and he said no. But how can you beg someone to forgive when there's been no accountability? Which T'Challa may not have bear responsibility for, but Wakanda did. And T'Challa inherited the benefits of his father's decisions, as well as inheriting the curses and plagues that come with that. So resentment from Killmonger is not ideal, but reasonable. Even though it wasn't the son, he's paying for his father's choices. Just as Killmonger had to pay his whole life for his father's choices, which, mind you, his only choice that he was making was to try to liberate the black people from their oppressors. When you look outside the window, you see his wilderness. You see the environment which he lived in. And he is seeking to change what that looks like, because even in the astral realm, he is stuck within these bondage. Not just the apartment, but that of his peoples. And so if he could change their existence into something more positive, something that can be more free, then he can even in death become free. But as of now, he stays chained. He stays shackled until we are all free. And then we get into Killmonger's rage, bruh. The rage that had him choke an elder in the air, not giving no fucks about women at all and their well-being. But I must point out that this is a trope that's put against working class black folks that isn't necessarily true. Does domestic violence or abuse towards women happen? Absolutely. Is it more from poor people than rich people? Yeah, but that's due to stress. So that's not due to anything else. People will show their worst characteristics when they're under stress. Does it minimize it? No. But also, it doesn't just happen like the movie. These situations did not make much sense. You could even see the first one as something that could have possibly made some sense. Like where he shot his partner to try to kill Claw. I mean, that's fucked up, yeah, legitimate, but that has some logic to it, right? But then choking and burning down the traditional heritage of his people did not fit his character at all. But those things felt like they had to be forced in to be able to justify him as a villain. Because if they weren't, then we really wouldn't see him that way. The idea that radical Black leaders have had more toxicity towards women, at least in the US, at least from the Bay, the references that they were making, the idea that radical Black leaders have been more patriarchal and given more violence to women than other types of male leaders or male Black leaders is just a work of fiction, to be honest with you. Because when we search like for the history of the Black Panthers, which is something that it felt like, at least to me, Killmonger was heavily referenced to, right? Like the Black liberation movements and the Black Panther Party. In fact, he seemed very analogous to Huey P. Newton. And I'm not saying Huey P. Newton didn't have problems, but one of the things that comes to mind is how it was mandated that Black Panthers respect women leadership. That was crucial. In fact, he's the one that appointed Elaine Brown in the first place. Not only that, but he also challenged homophobia, demanding that Black Panthers stand in solidarity with the queer movements, the queer liberation movements.
Those groups of women who are politically conscious, we would like to unite with them, and we would like to also have unity with the homosexual groups who are also politically conscious. We've had meetings with the homosexual representatives of the homosexual group and also the Women's Liberation Front. Now, the homosexual group have been oppressed so much and so badly until it was hard to convince them that the Black Panther Party is relating to them. But we see homosexuals are human beings, and they're oppressed because of the bourgeois mentality and the bourgeois treachery that exists in this country.
That being said, Huey P. Newton was not a perfect person, but neither was any of the other revolutionaries, male or female, man or woman, because human beings, people, are far from perfect. In fact, a lot of times we move for our own interests. However, one of the things when you see people move, those interests make sense. Those add up to a piece of who they are, versus this just seemed fractured. It also seemed very much a play on tropes of what hood Black folks are like, the bad Black folks, right? Those at the bottom. One thing I really could not relate to in this movie is any of the characters outside of Killmonger, because they were all bourgeois Black folks. Their sensibilities were based off different shit. Their sensibilities were more honestly influenced by European customs. But that's a whole other conversation I'm gonna get into later in another video. Versus Killmonger, the most relatable character for someone who grew up poor and from the hood and from the streets. Killmonger was the most relatable one. However, there's multiple times where you see two-dimensional, not like a real person, like when he choked that old girl, like when he shot his girlfriend. But the trope of him being full of rage, but he was so controlled. There's no way he was full of rage. He was too controlled for that. He was full of ambition. He may have been full of resentment. His underlying rage they try to portray just wasn't really there. Like that just didn't make sense given the character arc. Now, are there motherfuckers like that? Yeah, for sure, but they ain't controlled. If you ever know motherfuckers that have rage issues, they're completely out of control. They're not gonna be able to compose themselves for shit. You know what I mean? Also, the whole fact of like Killmonger being trained by the CIA, and that's why he's all fucked up, right? It seems like a reference to a different movie. If people have ever heard of The Spook Who Sat by the Door, that is a movie about a Black man who got trained by the CIA and then was utilizing his training that he got through the CIA to overthrow the US government. And he started leading what would become a successful revolution. I mean, seems to be successful, because the movie ends in the middle of this revolution, but they're literally making headway at overthrowing the US government. They've done multiple attacks, so on and so forth, and they're trying to claim their communities back and liberate their people. The CIA trained dude going to then liberate the African people seems like a direct reference to Spook Who Sat by the Door. And to make him the bad guy is wild and outlandish. Well, they somehow try to squeeze in this CIA dude is the buddy of T'Challa, the buddy of the Black Panther. He's a good guy. He's a good white dude. It makes me reflect on the conversations between the CIA and Claw. They betrayed Claw to be worse, but Claw clearly is like a reference to like the USSR and the Russians. And so it makes a lot of reference to that, but the CIA is supposed to be look, you can trust us, you can fuck with us. I mean, you know, the CIA who put crack in our fucking neighborhoods, that motherfucker. Yeah, Snowflake over here put dope in our neighborhoods. And then he's a good guy killing the Black Panther. Just think about that, man. He's serving your grandma with the dope, my nigga. He supplied everybody. He got us hooked on this shit. They said the same thing. We dropped his motherfucking heroin in our communities. Let's be a buck, man. The CIA was hand in hand with like groups like the FBI who were fighting against black liberation movements all across the US. This dude is supposed to be a good guy. Are you on, man? Nah. Honestly, it seems like Killmonger was closer to right on his choices of white people, especially when he saw them as expendable, than T'Challa was. Because T'Challa is picking the person who's like been the worst of black people across the world. That's his buddy. He didn't save this nigga's life. Let that nigga die. Let him succumb to his wounds. This is where we get to the threat of the bourgeoisie. So during that like conversation with T'Challa and Killmonger when they first meet, there was a lot of advocating, specifically from the women inside the room. This is not attacking black women. Don't go after black women. If you go after black women, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're gonna have smoke from me, bro. If you're one of my followers, you try to go, oh, f black women, you're right. We got smoke, bro. I don't play that. Where they decide to argue towards isolationism, argue towards apathy to other black folks. In fact, they said they're not Wakandians, so f them. Mind you, they legit said that their politics are trash. I'm trying to tell you, all the Wakandians were trash. I'm gonna be blunt, because all I can see as someone from the hood, I'm not from the Bay, I'm from Seattle, but someone who grew up in the streets as a black person is, fuck me. That's all I can see through this whole movie over and over again. I don't see myself reflected. Because I don't just look at skin tone, I look at characteristics. The only people who even share characteristics was Killmonger. T'Challa though, shared characteristics with specific people that have historically betrayed my people, that share the same skin tone, but not all skin folk or kinfolk family. The petite bourgeois and the black bourgeoisie as a whole. They represent, to me, not somebody I can be proud of, but somebody who historically has betrayed my community for their own profit. In the early 1990s, specifically started 91 to 93, 94-ish, there was a specific thing called Weed and Seed. What Weed and Seed did is worked with the police and black leadership, that means the black bourgeoisie of the community, to decide who was the bad Negroes, the bad black folks, and uproot that element so that they can seed in a different element that's more beneficial to the community, quote unquote. People seem to never understand. Community is not the area. It is not a demographic. It is a group of people who all interact and have like an ecosystem together. The black churches and the black leadership and the black petite bourgeoisie and the black bourgeoisie signed on and worked with the police to uproot the poor black folks, to push us out of our neighborhoods, to gentrify our neighborhoods, flipping a lot of that property to white folks, making a good little buck for their pocket, a nice little profit. And when it comes to the problems that we have in our community, they distance themselves, much like the Wakandians distance themselves from the rest of the African diaspora. And it's just not our way. We take care of ours type mentality. But are you really taking care of yours if you're only taking care of the bourgeoisie? During Weed and Seed, people were trespassed from their own neighborhoods, so they couldn't walk on specific roads. People whose kids were selling drugs to make some money for themselves then would lose their houses due to civil forfeiture. Them folks from that community that are more bourgeois would applaud, would buy up and resell the property. And they would say this was for the betterment of our community. This was to go hand in hand with the 94 crime bill, which was a big part of the Weed and Seed propaganda. We're trying to remove the so-called super predators, the little Killmongers, who then supposedly grow to become the Killmongers, these fictional characters that have no restraint and no loyalty. Though clearly his whole foundation is based off loyalty to his people and loyalty to his father. Also, there is this whole ideology that not only this movie is founded on, but the black bourgeoisie as a whole, the good and bad black folks.
The good and bad niggas.
This idea is found all the way back to W.E.B. Du Bois, talking about how white folks hate black folks because they always put the good white folks around the bad Negroes, aka the poor Negroes. This mentality comes from the touted 10th mentality. The touted 10th is the idea that 1/10 of the society is supposed to rule over the rest because they're the ones that understand and are educated. the educated, talented people. Despite a lot of times their theories and shit don't touch ground, and so they're just talking out their neck because they never really lived the experiences they're trying to speak to. They've only lived their own. Which shows through also in this movie, which absolutely betrays those at the bottom and shit as somebody who can't be trusted. You need to trust the leadership already assigned. You need to trust the T'Challas to do what's right. You know, you need to trust them to open a non-profit in your motherfucking hood, dog, because that's gonna make a difference. Despite historically, they've always been poverty pimps in our neighborhoods, utilizing our trauma to make themselves a profit. We even saw this in the BLM motion, because a lot of people who did not face police violence as a normality were the forefront of the voices speaking on police brutality. They were petite bourgeois and bourgeois folks. They were academics that, yes, maybe they've had an experience with police brutality and experience with police terrorism. However, it being normal to them is not something they know. And the people who did know it normally were only used as symbols once we were dead. If we were actually there, people wanted to keep us in our place. Despite this whole messaging was about us. And a lot of people want to blame black women for it, but the reality is it wasn't black women, it was bourgeois folks. It was black bourgeois women, it was black bourgeois men. That's why we saw the makeup of B&M being black bourgeois folks. And in truth, we cannot trust them with our destiny. We can't trust the T'Challas. And could we have trusted the Killmongers? Not the one they made out, but the one who would have really been, maybe, maybe not. The concept, the idea that the sun will never set on the Wakandan Empire. Let's address that real quick. That is a problem. However, that's not been the narrative of most resistance movements across the world, and definitely not ones founded in Oakland, California, in the United States. Has there been weirdos that pop up and claim to be a real substantial organization that represent those politics? Absolutely. But they never really had the footing of the, say, Black Panther movement or the Black Liberation movement. But the major examples of resistance movements that we have, that a lot of who Killmonger was taken from, actually respected their women, actually respected their men, actually respecting their queers. Based off what was written, at the end of the day, Wakanda has shown zero solidarity with black folks. And that's all Killmonger really wanted. Well, and justice for his father's murder. And what I'll say real quick, like before I hop off, is I agree with Killmonger. I won't live in y'all bougie houses in a cage. I'd rather die, leave my body at sea. With my ancestors who knew it was better to die resisting than to live as slaves. And nigga, we don't need a non-profit in our motherfucking hood, bro. We need some gats, bro. What the fuck, dog? And some food. What's up, bro? Viva the revolution, nigga. Deuces.
From the future, aka the editing bay. I completely forgot to bring up something that was really important that FD pointed out that I did not even know about. After Chadwick died, after the Black Panther passed away, there were many black boys that had memorials to the Black Panther. And it was kind of heartbreaking when I saw that. And saw an importance in this movie that I had never seen really before. However, it made me think even more so about my criticisms and about how that impacts the little boys sitting in the hood, little boys with lumpen proletariat backgrounds who have often already been robbed of their fathers, a lot of times both their fathers and their mothers, and don't even get to really hold a hero that fits and reflects them, not just in appearance but in the reality that they face. Because the closest example in this movie for that is Killmonger, and then the little boys who saw the spaceship come down in the bay, but never were really a part of the Wakandan movement like that. That at best are going to be recipients of the non-profit industrial complex that was set up by Wakanda. And that is heartbreaking in itself, especially when you realize that a lot of them little boys are never going to be able to see themselves reflected in a positive way as a hero. That the stories that are told about them are the same ones that justified the 94 crime bill. That they're bad children. That they're predators. I think that in itself is a humongous downfall of this movie. And how it completely failed a whole group of people. Because Killmonger couldn't even be the hero he was allowed to be. And unlike in the sequel, he didn't even get a real chance at redemption to be able to stand his ground and still go to work with the hero. He just had to die. Just some food for thought.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, hit that bell so you can stay notified. Share this video widely so we can get some distribution because you know YouTube hates us. All the names going by the screen are Patreons. You can become a Patreon now. We added a new $2 tier so anybody can join. And it grants you access to both the Discord and the archive videos. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you on the next one.
Fade out as it fade out, baby, blood sprays out what you made out. Move like you got gout when you hear bow bow. We move like we mow grab us bow down.